Welcome into the video, welcome into the channel. Hope everyone's doing well out there. And in today's video, I'm talking HDR gaming settings on my 77-inch LG G4 with the PlayStation 5 Pro connected to it. And the reason why I'm doing this video today is I've seen a number of requests come in on some of my recent videos asking me to show my settings, how I have things set up when it comes to specifically this game called Crimson Desert. And I apologize if there's any spoilers on this page. I did my best to filter the map so that you wouldn't see all the things I've uncovered. So this is just the starting point, but all right, so let's take a look at what I was talking about. So here's my San Francisco 49ers court jester look. And I'm standing next to a waterfall here, and you kind of get the picture of these are the settings, and let me show you how I got here. So let me do it first by talking about things at the TV level. So let's go ahead and pull up the game dashboard. And the first thing I'll touch on real quick is just my game dashboard layout in general. So in case you weren't aware, you can actually manipulate the settings you see here across the top with this little pencil icon, which is pretty cool. But the pertinent information for me whenever I'm gaming is I wanted to have my frames per second counter, whether VRR is enabled or not, whether HDR is enabled or not, and the resolution. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at specifically how my G4 is set up. And as we make our way in, the first thing you'll notice is that I am in HDR Select Mode Game Optimizer. Let's go ahead and head on down to Advanced Settings, and I'll start in the brightness section. And as you can see here, LG has decided to lock out a few of these settings, but I'll kind of run through how things are looking. OLED pixel brightness at 100, adjust contrast at 100, more on that a little later. Black level 50, auto dynamic contrast is off. Dynamic tone mapping. Now this is the first one you'll need to make a decision on how you want your image to look when you're gaming. As you can see here, I have 3 options to choose from, and truth be told, I have 4 because if I click off, it's going to unlock the professional setting. But for the purposes of this video, and for those of you wanting to know how I got my Crimson Desert to look the way it is, I chose this. Now, one thing I need to make note of is if you're new to PlayStation and you're new to LG OLEDs, whenever you flip this switch and you've chosen dynamic tone mapping on, or HDIG for that matter as well, you will need to go into the console level and basically match this to make sure everything looks right. Next up, we have Expression Enhancer. I have that turned off. There was a time period where I actually went through and tested these out in multiple games, and I had originally settled on Detailed. Let me go ahead and click that. And in a game like this, you could barely notice it in person, let alone on camera. But to get this to look the way it did in my prior video, leave this off. All right. And we'll continue. Peak brightness locked in at high, gamma locked in at 2.2. So as you can see here in this main menu, there's not much to change. As a matter of fact, the only thing to change is dynamic tone mapping. Next, let's head over to color. And the first thing you'll notice is that color depth is locked in this main menu. More on that a little later as well. We can change this, it's just not here for some reason. But color depth is locked in at 55 out of the box. Tint 0, didn't mess with that. Color gamut, I have changed it to native because if I go to auto detect, while it doesn't show up drastically here, I just wanted a little bit more color pop, but nothing crazy. So I've chosen native for that. And we'll go ahead and move on down to fine tune, and there's only one thing here to mess with. And I'll go ahead and change this to high. And on this particular area of the map, you don't see it as much, but whenever I'm on the main PlayStation menu and there's any kind of blues or purples, I can really see this come through. However, again, I didn't feel it was necessary. I like the way the colors look with it off, so I've left it off. Let's back out. And next is gonna be one of the more impactful changes that I'll show you in this video, and that's deciding what your color temperature is. Now, out of the box, this is actually gonna be all the way up here, if I can get it to do it, at 0. Okay, whenever you first plug everything in, it's set to 0 as standard, and it can look okay in certain instances, but for me, it's too cold. It brings in too much blue, too much white, so I prefer to go all the way to warm 50. Now let me show you what happens when I go to cold 50. As you can see, heavy blue push. All the way to warm 50, heavier yellowish push, but I think the colors just look a lot more natural. And if you care at all about color and image accuracy, this is where you're gonna wanna be. However, I understand that this is highly subjective, and I've had comments in the past say it's too yellow, it's, you know, it doesn't pop enough, whatever it is. My recommendation to you would be to go to warm 50 at the beginning and just drag the slider up little by little until you find what works well for you. For me, warm 50 works. Let's back out, and then I do nothing else with any of that. And then let's go ahead and back out, and then we'll finish up here in the main menu on clarity. And as you can see here, LG has pretty much locked everything. There's not much to do here. There is super resolution that's available. I've tested this out in multiple games. The only game that I've ever seen this make a difference is Dying Light 2. I turned this on to high, and I walked up to a bunch of buildings and I could see a little more fine detail. But outside of that, it's not doing much, so I left it off. All right, next, let's take a look at things at the game dashboard level. And again, here's my dashboard, here's my optimizer. Let's go on in there and let's do a deeper dive and see how things are looking. And from this menu, you can see here I'm on user settings. Forgive me, I don't recall if this is actually a selectable option. I'm pretty sure out of the box it starts at standard, and then once you start making your own changes, it moves to user. If it doesn't and user is an option, go ahead and select user because we're gonna be making some changes. As we go down, OLED motion is off, that's grayed out anyway. Reduce blue light is off, dark room mode is off. Prevent input delay, you have two options here. You have standard and boost. I tried out boost when I first got the G4, and unfortunately it introduced a bunch of, I'll call them imperfections in the image, like distracting imperfections. I had to turn it off. I don't really feel like it's necessary. I originally wanted to use it with Call of Duty, but apparently it would make no difference in that. So anyway, we move on. Dashboard checked on, of course. VRR and G-Sync checked on. FreeSync is off. I've only ever turned on this feature with this display when I still had my Xbox Series X, which I no longer have. And we have 144 Hertz mode. Not applicable to this setup because unfortunately the PS5 Pro is not capable of going to these in its current form, so it doesn't make sense to have it on. Of course, ALLM is checked on. Fine-tune dark areas, 0. And the menu color, you can make this what you want. I hope in the future LG gives us more colors to choose from. It's nice that we have something to choose from, but there's only 3. You know, kind of boring, but out of these 3, orange is actually my least favorite because my college football team, any of our rivals pretty much wear orange, so I hate orange. But for the purposes of the video and how it contrasts with the rest, I went ahead and made it orange. But again, choose whatever you like. And that's it from here. All right, let's head over to the picture section. And as you can see here, the genre is on user. But let's take a look at black and white stabilizer because these are also going to have pretty good impacts on your image. And in that standard mode, I believe it starts at 10 and 10 respectively. But what I would recommend you do is to go to one extreme to start and work your way up. Okay, so for the black stabilizer, I'm going all the way to 0. You notice it really darkened everything up. And I just started working my way up. You know, I'll show you what it looks like at 20 and 0. And for me, the balance I liked was 7. Next, we're gonna do the same thing with the white stabilizer. You know, I'm gonna go down all the way and it brightened it up. I go up all the way, it darkened it up. For me, again, I just started dragging the slider until I found a happy medium, and for me, that was 15. Not too bright, not too dark. I like the way it kind of contrasts the rock. You can really see the detail, so 15 it is for me. Game contrast, now this is gonna be controversial because there was a time where I actually opted to lower this, okay? And let me show you where I had it. And this is kind of a no-no when it comes to HDR, is to manipulate contrast and pixel brightness because it's HDR after all. There was a time in a game specifically, which is College Football 26, where I actually thought this looked better. And I would rock this for a while, but at the end of the day, I wanna be happy with all my games. I wanna have a set it and forget it set of settings here. So I opted to go ahead and crank it back up because I love how it looks at 100 in Call of Duty. I love how 100 looks in this game. So I'll sacrifice a little bit of image perfection, so to speak, in college football, since that's kind of the outlier. Let's back up. Game black level, I don't make any changes here, 50 is fine. Sharpness, this is out of the box setting. I think if you're playing 4K games the majority of the time, you know, you could probably even lower this to 0 and get away with it. I think 10 is fine. It doesn't over sharpen anything. And color depth, look at that. Now, make note of this. Remember, in the full menu, this is locked at 55. However, you notice here it's a different number. Now, first, let me discuss the colors and how it impacts it, and I'll kind of share a secret with you that I've discovered here messing around with the display. But out of the box is 55. What I did was exactly what I did with the other ones. I just started going like this until I was like, okay, where do I like it? Now, I originally tried to game with it at about 70. I really wanted to drive home some poppy colors. I mean, look at the red on the uniform. But as I continued to game, stuff just overall didn't look natural enough. So then I moved to 65. I said, well, it looks better, but it's not quite there. And I finally just ended up settling on 58. I feel like it adds that 1-2% more color, however you want to put it, just that little bit more, that it doesn't make things look cartoony and unnatural. So for me, to get that look you saw in the prior video, I have it at 58. And I did promise you I would share a secret about the advanced picture settings. So remember, this is 58. Let's go back in there. Okay, so you see how these settings are grayed out here. I have a program on my PC that allows me to actually manipulate the data that's grayed out in here. So while it's not in a public menu and I can't change it in-game from here, I can just load up on my desktop this app and I could change these. What I discovered was that these are locked in. The first thing I did was I actually changed this to 0, made no impact to this image at all, none. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So naturally, with that in mind, you see this is locked in at color depth 50. You could lock this in at color depth 0 on the app on the PC, won't matter. The only thing that's gonna matter is what I was showing you in the optimizer, which is gonna be that color depth under the picture subsection. So any of these settings that you see in the public menu, not changing anything, at least not for me. The only time it's changing is if I come in here like that contrast setting you saw that I said I changed to 0 and it had no impact. Well, we know this is gonna change, look at that. But this same contrast setting, which some of you in the comments are gonna say it's not the same, but it's, in all intents and purposes, it's supposed to be. The contrast setting in the public menu or the main menu has no impact, but this one does. So clearly they're separate. And same with black level and same with color depth. So as things start to darken up, you know, it's 647 in game. This kind of lets you show a little bit more of the color. Let's dive into the game settings and let me show you how I have things at the game level set up. So I'm gonna hit start and I'm gonna go over to others. I'm gonna go to game settings here. And the first thing we need to talk about is the preset. Now, as you can see here, we have performance, balance, and quality. And I tested these out for a good bit, especially before the game developers started cranking out a bunch of updates trying to figure out which one I like best. And here's what I will tell you about myself personally is that 99.9% of the time, if a game is offering a performance, a balance, and a quality, I'm gonna go for the performance mode because I must have a smooth experience when it comes to the frames per second. That is like the first thing that matters to me. However, this is that 0.1% of the time here where that's not necessarily the case, and I'm gonna give it up to, I think it's Prince Abyss, or forgive me people out there, you know, you'd think I'd know this off the top of my head as much as I like this game. But the developer of Crimson Desert, they have been cranking out updates left and right, and they have really improved the image quality on this game to the point where I have come up with a combination on this screen you're looking at that I actually feel comfortable. It's not as good as performance, smoothness wise, not even close. Because I'm gonna show you in real time here momentarily. But for me, I like balanced. The extra detail in the rocks you'll see in the behind me makes the difference, and the frames are good enough. PSSR sharpness cranked to the max, of course, HDR on, VSync off, fixed 4K on, 120 mode on, night tone mode. That's new with the game version mode. Game version you see up there in the top right up here, 1.07, that's new as of today, as of the time of filming this. And then HDR settings, let me show you how it's set up. Again, now keep one thing in mind. That 3750 you see over there, that's based on the form of tone mapping I have chosen, which is dynamic tone mapping on, which you can kind of go up to like 4,000 with this number with that. I chose 3750. I didn't feel the need to go all the way to 4,000. I may catch some flack in the comment section, especially if you're like a professional calibrator, but I'm doing this based on my eyes and what I like, okay? Exposure, didn't make any changes, left that at 50. And UI brightness, I turned that all the way down because I just didn't feel the need to have the prompts like that default and close in the bottom right at full brightness, especially on an OLED display. So let's get back out of here. There's only two more things that I need to show you that I've adjusted. And that's gonna be, as I scroll down, particle effects quality. I turned that all the way off because if you see over there on the right, it says adjust the amount of particle effects during gameplay. The key is this right here. Lowering this setting may improve performance. Remember, I'm sacrificing the highest frames per second I can get for better image quality for one of the rare times that I've ever done that. And so I figured, why not turn that all the way down to give myself the best possible performance I can get on the balance mode. And as I go down, there's only one more here, and that's blur intensity. Any game I ever play, I don't care what kind of game it is, that's going all the way down. Do not like motion blur at all. Now I did promise you that I would go through here and make some changes and show you them in real time, so I'm gonna change this to performance. I'm gonna back out. And for me, in person, first of all, the motion looks incredible. This feels so much better than even balanced. But like the detail in the rock, it's just not nearly as clear. And for aesthetics here, I'm gonna show you both of these, the way you could see your frames, just so you could see in real time. So as you could see here, since there's no NPCs, you know, there's no animals near me, there's not a lot, well, there isn't, sorry, there are animals. I'm sorry, little bunny. There's only a couple of you, and see how it dropped the frames? Anytime you have animals, NPCs, which could be one and the same, I might be speaking out of turn there, but anytime you have, you know, animals, humans, whatever, the frames are gonna drop. But you can see here, I'm holding pretty steady in the 60s, and I've even seen a 70 or whatever pop up, I think. But let's go ahead, there we go. We got 70s, we got 74. All right, so let's pop balance back on. Okay, and we see the frames drop. And what you're gonna see here is that on an area of the map like this, first of all, the detail in the rock, a lot better, okay? I could see it clearly. When I look far away at rocks, can see a lot better detail. You know, as we're gonna get dark here pretty soon. I guess it'll give me a chance to show my settings in the dark too. But as we walk around here, the foliage, everything looks good. You know, I'm gonna do this just so we can kind of look around, as I thought I was gonna fall off the side of the cliff. I do that a lot. With these settings can be a little finicky. But that's how we're looking here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put on quality mode. Let's see. And yes, I could manipulate the other settings to really tailor it, but I did all this when I was trying to figure out the one I wanted. And immediately, the frames feel horrific. You see them floating around. We know 112, 120 is not accurate. I'm really getting more like 20, 30. Yeah, if I had to guess, I'm getting like 30 frames right here. It feels awful. Matter of fact, let me back out. I am seeing more detail in the rocks up close and far away for sure. Not worth it. Not worth it at all. So for me, this setting right here, if you just got Crimson Desert, you have an LG OLED display, and you have a PS5 Pro, I highly recommend you try out this right here you're looking at. Okay, let's back out again. I'll pull up the frames again in a different format. It's one of the cool things about LG displays. You can pull up this version. But as I see a chest down there, I'm gonna fly down there and get that in a minute. That's what I love about this game, you know? I can go through all these areas and then just come across a random freebie or a treasure or whatever. But as we look around, I mean, this looks fantastic to me. the frames are good enough. Because the main concern I had about going away from performance in this game was doing combat, boss fights. And I did not want to have the lower frames making me lose boss fights. Well, I can tell you, after battling mini bosses to this point, the missing 10 or 15 frames from performance to balance has not made a difference at all, in my opinion. But, you know, hey, let's jump down here and see what kind of goodies we got. I'll do a fly over the water. You see how everything's looking so good. There we go. All right, let's see what we get in here. We got, oh, some bismuth. Bismuth? How do you say that, guys? Dried fish, okay. Any of you who play this game knows you're gonna need health. And these controls can be so finicky. So sorry if I look funny there, kind of aiming at stuff. But yeah, let's just kind of walk around a little bit as we're at kind of like dusk, I guess you could call it. Let's look up at the sky. It's partly cloudy. You know, we just discovered some rocks to mine. There we go. Might as well do that while we're here, right? There we go. And that way you guys can also see how the frames, you know, what happens with the frames whenever I'm doing something interactive with the map. Now here we go with the finicky controls. There we go. And took care of that. You know, I wouldn't mind running into some bandits around here. You know, we won't chop up Bambi here. You know, at least while filming. Wink. But, you know, I was hoping to run into a couple of bandits around here, but, boy, you're tempting fate there, little guy. All right. Let's jump over this and make sure there's not a secret down there. Okay, I don't see it. Okay. We're just going to kind of roam around here and let it get a little darker. But, I mean, look at the detail in the rock up there on balance mode, guys. Fantastic. Awesome stuff. And as we roam around here, leave me some comments below. What do you think of my settings? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you think they're ridiculous? You know, I mean, leave me your comments. Tell me what you think. Try them out. I highly encourage you, even if you're somebody that is like, oh man, that's awful. You should never set it that way. You know, try it out. Try it out and see what your eyes say, not just what data says or what a pro calibrator says. Try it out for yourself and see how you feel. Who knows? You might like the, you know, you might actually like how it is, even though it's not accurate. You know, it's not accurate. You know, I was somebody that tried to stick to accuracy so much when I was gaming full time on my 77-inch LG C2. I went HDIG, I set it up as accurately as I could based on, you know, feedback from calibrators, and I enjoyed my experience. I'm not complaining at all, but I thought when I got the G4, I'm gonna do it different this time. You know, I'm just gonna use a mix. I'll do a little bit of what I know about the accuracy, and then I'm gonna go my own way a little bit, you know? Because after all, I'm not gaming with calibrators. You know, I don't pretend to be, you know, a pro calibrator. I'm only doing this because I had a number of you ask me how I had it set up to make Crimson Desert look that way. Not here to tell you that this is right, wrong, and different. I'm just here to tell you this is how I like things, you know? Let's get back to traversing some mountains here because we're headed for darkness. And it's so funny, guys. There's another game that I play that, you know, I'm always leery about what time it is, because once it goes dark, the game changes quite a bit, and that's Dying Light, like Dying Light the Beast, Dying Light 2. And I don't know about you guys if you play that game, but I try to avoid darkness like the plague. You know, I try to avoid it if I can, unless I'm just like in one of those moods, I guess. And in this game, you know, sometimes I have to remind myself it's okay to be out after dark. You know, you're not going to have something called a volatile you know, coming after you just because it became 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. So it's okay to be out after dark. No curfews here. But as we roam around, you know, we can kind of see how things look. The dark, you see how the water looks. We're looking good. We're looking good, guys. At least for me. This looks good to me. Could I get away with a little more color? Could I get away with maybe setting it to 60? Sure. But again, you know, it looks good enough, and I want this to look good in all the games I play. I do not want to have to do this at the game level, which is the problem I was having when I first got this G4. I just found myself tuning it for every game, and I said, I need to find a setting that will look good in anything I'm playing. Will it look the best in everything? No. But I just need it to be universal enough to where I can just enjoy the games. And that's what I found here, of course, until Crimson Desert came out, and it got me back into messing around with settings. But let's see what we got down here. We have some sand. Let me see if there's any of that red seaweed down here. Give you another look. Look at that. How cool is that, guys? Free falling. Okay. All right, we're down here. And I don't see any right off. Okay. As we're a lot darker now than we were at the beginning. And I don't see it, but a little bit of a spoiler alert. I'm pretty sure this is the spot where you can get in my opinion, a very good weapon as a starter weapon, which is going to be these bad boys right here. Now you only get one. I've managed to get two, obviously. But let me zoom in a little bit. These axes are awesome, especially once you level them up a little bit. But I'm pretty sure this is the location. I got it right here. A little spoiler alert, or a little bit of help. You look at it. But we're getting closer to dark. I just want to let it get to like full on nighttime, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. If you're still watching, thank you so much. You know, I really appreciate you guys. I have such a cool community that follows my channel. You know, you get the occasional hater every now and then, but anybody who posts on YouTube is going to have that. But for the most part, you guys are kind, because I'm certainly not some professional YouTuber. I do this on the side for fun, to interact with you guys, to do things that are hopefully helpful to you as we find it. Yes. Let's pick that. But I do this for fun on the side. It's not an income or anything that I depend on. It's just a little side fun for me, a little side hobby, I'll call it that. But the majority of you are like positive, tell me you appreciate what I do, you appreciate my type of video. So thank you to you guys. If you're still watching, really appreciate it. As we get a look at our guy here. San Francisco 49er Court Jester. By the way, leave me a comment. Are you a 49ers fan? I actually used to be a Niners fan when I was a kid, even though I'm not even from remotely that part of the country. I just love the colors. This will give away my age a little bit, but Joe Montana, Steve Young, they kind of hooked me. But that's not my actual pro team I root for, so I don't mean to like insult you if I keep saying 49ers Court Jester. It's just look at his outfit. You know, it's 49ers, and he looks like a clown. So anyway. All right, so let's run around here a little bit, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. This video has been going on a long time, so I hope you've enjoyed it. And continue to leave me feedback on stuff you want to see, like these settings videos, and you know, I'll crank them up. You know, I'm enjoying doing this. As I get another, oh, I see a lot of red dots up there. What do you guys say? Should I go up there and go to war? Maybe I'll conclude the video by going to war up there. All right, let's see. You guys can see these axes in action. Is there any more here? Yeah. I feel like I'm missing some. Well, maybe not. All right, let's go up here and see what these are. Let's see. So what kind of bandits do we got roaming around up here? Up, up, up. Oh, there they are. Hey guys. Are you sure about that? I mean, look at that. At this part of the map and these type of enemies, he's like, okay, I don't want any part of you. And I'm not even using the, good Lord, dude. I'm not even using the power move. I'm just using the normal attack. Oh, okay, might as well rescue you while I'm here. So there, we got to kind of wrap the video here with a little combat. Garlic. They have gum in this game. I don't want my breath to be bad. Okay, so let's see. Oh, it's a pirate, not a bandit. Picked up some cloth. More cloth. Okay. Let's see. Is that all the X's? There's one more over here somewhere. Here we go. What happened there? Okay. Oh, I picked up something with a sprocket over there. Okay, guys. We're at 10 o'clock at night. We got full-on darkness now. We'll turn on our little lantern, even though I don't like the way it looks with the lantern. But glad I got to show you a little combat. You know, we'll get a little about face with the lantern on. I'm turning it off. And there's our guy. What a complete badass that is. And I just noticed how bad the frame rate looks on the recording. I hope that the post-production looks better than that, because that's certainly not the frame rate that I'm seeing in person. You know, I have 50s, which is not terrible. And on camera, it looks real juddery at times, and it's not the case in person. So let me put that out there. But guys, that's gonna do it for this very long video. If you're still here, really appreciate you. You know, if you enjoy this kind of content, this videos, keep leaving me comments with suggestions on what you want to see. Of course, leave a like on the video. That lets me know that you're enjoying this content and you want to see more. And if you're new here and you like this sort of content, I do videos like this, as the guy I rescued is just hanging out back there. What are you doing? No loitering. If you like this sort of content, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss my future uploads. But hey, well, all that being said, well, first, I'm going to get back to enjoying this amazingly beautiful game. Look at that. But with all that being said, until the next one.